Welcome to the Nonprofit Sidekick Podcast. Changing the world is hard work, and nonprofit leaders are wearing all the hats while herding all of the cats, and it can get really lonely. You could use a sidekick.
We think of ourselves as your partners in mastering the unique balancing act of nonprofit leadership. Our goal is to provide insights, coaching, and direction for nonprofit leaders, both the heart and soul of nonprofit leadership and the nuts and bolts of nonprofit management. We're your hosts, Wendy Bertner
and Stephanie Masters. So welcome back to today's episode. Today, we're going to talk about my favorite topic, which is culture. So culture is a really complicated subject, I think, especially in the social sector. How do you define it? And so we're going to define what it is. We're also going to talk about the components that develop culture and how do you sustain it. And then what we're also going to dive into is how do you lead it? So what are leaders' responsibilities within the role of the ED as well as the board and the board chair?
and the complications that come from having to lead culture collaboratively.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to that.
We will, because that's the thing I'm most interested in.
Yeah.
So let's start out. You are the expert in this topic, so I'm going to kind of ask you some questions today.
I'm ready.
And learn from you. Are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
So if a train is going 20, no, just kidding. So let's talk about culture. Why is it important? Who cares? I'm coming in, I'm doing a job. Why should I care about culture?
Yeah, most people are probably rolling their eyes as we start to talk about this. But culture is the heart of the organization. And if you have a crappy culture, you are not going to deliver on the mission. You're not going to keep staff. People are not going to be engaged. And more than likely, what you're going to see is that the board is going to be more hands-off. They're not going to be attached to the mission or the heart of the organization, and they're not going to talk about it.
So those are the red flags we should look for. If
all
we're
the red
seeing
flags.
Those red flags in our organizations.
Yeah, you hear any of that,
crappy
start to
culture.
panic. Yep.
Time to do some work.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, because I've read these books with you, that two of your favorite books that talk about this is The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle and Amy Edmondson's work, which I don't have the name of the book here. I'm sorry. I forget her book, but both fantastic. I thought they were good because I don't think about culture. When I was running organizations, I thought about people and I wanted to make sure they were happy and they were good. But I didn't necessarily think of it the way that it's put forth in these books. So I kind of wish I'd read these books like 20 years ago.
Yeah, me too. So let's talk about how culture sits over the framework that you always talk about with other organizations. So if you don't have your policies, your procedures, you don't have a strategic, the nuts and bolts, the strategy, the business plan, the budget, all of that, you can't then build a culture. People have to understand what their expectations are. Why are they doing this work? How does it actually impact the community or the key constituents that they're trying to reach? And Daniel Coyle wrote the book, The Culture Code, which really breaks it down into these three critical areas of being able to establish a strong culture, but then how do you continually build it so that people are so engaged that they have this tremendous loyalty, that they have skin in the game, that they truly emulate what the mission is of the organization. So the three elements that we talk about is, first, he talks about psychological safety or vulnerability. So I know that there are probably people that are like, oh, what does this mean? Why do I need to know it? So psychological safety means that if I'm engaging with you in a conversation, that I can be authentic and genuine, and I can tell you how I feel. I can tell you that I may not agree with you and why, and that I understand that you are going to see me, you're going to hear me, you're going to validate it, and we're going to have a conversation about it. And what that leads to is vulnerability. And vulnerability is, I'm going to tell you what I am afraid of. I'm going to tell you what I'm challenged by, where I might be stuck. And what does that lead to? It leads to these really authentic connections where we understand how to support one another and lift each other up to be able to get the work done.
So you're talking about leaders being vulnerable with their staff.
Yes.
I know that sounded kind of goofy.
That was a leading question, and the answer is yes.
Leading question. How come there are leadership books out there that are kind of the opposite of what you're saying? And I know they're older, most of them, not all of them, but.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the traditional model, especially when baby boomers were leading in the social sector, it was very much hierarchical. I'm going to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
I'm the expert. It wasn't collaborative. It was more of the employees were passive versus active. And so this is a huge shift. And what we see and the evidence in so many organizations that are thriving is that they are focusing in on collaborative leadership, that the leader is modeling the behaviors that create that vulnerability, the psychological safety, as well as the other two elements of Daniel's book, which is building trust and then building shared purpose.
So these elements are built on each other, right? And I don't know, we want to take this whole episode to talk about the culture code, but maybe we do. So you have to build that psychological safety. You have to be vulnerable in order to do that, to get to the next step of trust, right? Is there anything you have to do to get to trust from there? Or is it just being vulnerable and reinforcing that and feeling confident that you're doing the right thing, even though people are telling you you're not being strong, you're being naive? Absolutely. Oh, that might have happened to me.
Oh, we're speaking from experience.
Yeah.
So with psychological safety and vulnerability, there's actually it's transactional. So the formula that Daniel talks about in the book is the first part of the formula is you and I are in conversation together and I demonstrate that I'm vulnerable, that, hey, I'm struggling. And you have a choice to make as either my influential peer who does influential leadership, or you're my manager leader. And you have a choice to make in that moment, whether or not you mirror it back.
Okay.
And say, I understand that. I've been there myself. Like this is a lesson that I've learned earlier on in my career, and I've felt the same way. And what that does is when you mirror that back, it deepens the ability for me to come back and say, all right, they see me, they hear me, and now I can tell the next part of this. And so it's built. Trust. Yeah. And that's how you get to trust, is that you're not only talking about this, but that the leadership actions and the support and the resources and the coaching that come behind it build those steps to get to trust. That I know every single time that I come to you and I tell you I'm struggling, or this is something that I'm just stuck on. I can't feel like I can't get past it. You're going to say, I get that. Let's talk through it. And I know and I trust that this relationship is consistent. The piece that I want to talk about in terms of this too is what we hear a lot of is that leaders will say all of these things, but then their actions don't match. So if you say it and your actions don't match, people are going to pay attention to your actions. They're not going to pay attention to what you say. Right. And what that does is that diminishes trust. What it does is it builds walls, and then people are eventually either just going to go to complacency or leave the organization.
Yeah. I think that's so true. And like, you can't just have a recipe and check things off.
No, you can't say, I hear what you're saying. I understand. I've been in your shoes.
Right.
No, share an example, lean into it, tell me.
Build that relationship. Yeah. Build that trust.
Yeah. So just as we've talked about in other episodes, is that this doesn't happen in one transaction. This happens over time. And so trust is something that you have to invest in, you have to build. Over and over again.
Yeah. Consistently. Yeah. So so the next question we have on the list that we had planned for is like, how do you lead it? What does it look like? But I think we've covered that. But we didn't talk a lot about shared purpose, though, as part of the culture codes thing. How do you lead shared purpose? I mean, obviously we have missions in nonprofits, but what are some other things to kind of make sure people understand we're all in this together?
If we look at the entire formula that Daniel lays out in the book, if you have vulnerability and psychological safety, people are talking to us about what their motivations are, what their dreams and their hopes are. And if we do that, then, and we listen to them and we're providing them opportunities to learn and grow and really validate what their strengths are, then we can get to shared purpose. How does what I do contribute to the greater good of the organization? That shared purpose is the connection between the employee, then the team. Yeah. Back up to what is the mission of the organization.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you as a leader, particularly in larger organizations, but even in small ones, they get running so fast. Everybody's doing a million things. How do you kind of keep a pulse or assess your culture? How do you know what's going on?
So it can happen in several different ways. It happens in what I call like the impromptu conversations, making sure that you have FaceTime with each person and just, it's not just, what I call like the drive by, like, hey, how are you? Good, good, excellent. And you keep going. It's tell me how you're doing. Asking open-ended questions, using appreciative inquiry, which is based on positive psychology. Tell me what you're excited about. Tell me what you're looking forward to. And then also asking some of the constructive questions. What's frustrating you? Tell me where you might be stuck. So the one-on-one conversations are really critical. And the second piece is tying it then back up to the team. So making sure that you're building time into your team meetings, doing team retreats, where it always comes back up to the shared purpose. Right. Why are we doing what we're doing? What are the results that we're looking for? What are some of the milestones that we set? And how do we celebrate it?
Yeah, I think it's really easy to chunk things out and silo, which is okay. That's how you manage it functionally. It's a framework that you can use. But there's got to be these touch points where people see that the work that they're doing affects everything else going on. And it's not the most important thing, but it is there. Everything is important. All the different pieces come together and nobody can do it by themselves.
Right.
And building that kind of team. I know when I was a CEO, the one-on-ones were really important. And I would tell my staff, we're going to have the same time every week, unless something big happens or what have you. I'm going to reserve that time on my calendar. You can come. If you don't come to me, I'm not going to come looking for you. This is your time that we're going to have together. And most of the time people would, when they first met me, they would start with this, like, okay, here's what I did this week. But I was always trying to get them to, that's great, but I want to talk about, how are you? How are you feeling? What do you need? Are you feeling good? Are you feeling stressed? That type of thing.
So everybody knows I love the Gallup organization and I love Clifton Strengths. And one of the greatest resources that they created was the recognition survey. And so the recognition survey, so I don't want anyone to think like, oh, this person likes cake or this person wants a coffee card. It's much deeper. It's making that personal connection to the person. What is the name that you prefer to be called? If I want to recognize you for your work, do you want that to happen publicly or privately? What are the things that you're building in your life that are really important to you that we can support that time? And through each stage of our career, we have different needs. When we first start out, maybe it's, saving up money and understanding how to, buy a house or to travel or set up for whatever milestones are important to that person. And revisiting that year over year, people will demonstrate that vulnerability and say, you know what, I'm at a stage where I'm taking care of elderly parents and, I need some support in that particular area. Or, hey, my kid's now in travel ball. And, the majority of my life is now going to be spent in either a camper or motel room on the weekends. This is what we're talking about in really developing that culture.
Yeah, you talked here a little bit about creating a culture where intelligent failure can occur. Um, Talk a little bit. What does that mean?
So that is Amy Edmondson's work. So Amy Edmondson is just a thought leader in the space around first psychological safety. So she's written lots of different books. She is a tenured professor at Harvard, and she has tied the concept of psychological safety to what we call intelligent failure. So in her book, The Art of Failing Well, is she talks about three different types of failures that we experience within the culture of our organizations. So there's basic failure, complex failure, and then intelligent failure. So just cliff noting, first two, very bad. So first one, basic failure happens because I may not know what's expected of me at work. I may not have the materials and resources. Or the third is I'm not engaged. I don't care. And therefore I'm going to cut corners. So what happens is there's no learning and it has a negative impact, lost time, lost wages. We might have lost, key constituents for the business. Complex failure is when the team is doing it. You have an unengaged team that doesn't have strong communication. They don't have the psychological safety. There isn't trust. So people are working in these silos. So what ends up happening is there's all of these missteps along the way. Same result as basic failure. No learning. Everybody's frustrated. Maybe somebody gets written up for it, upset customers or clients at the end of it. Intelligent failures when you have psychological safety. So you and I have done this through, the scope of our business is that we have great ideas.
Oh, yes.
Great ideas.
All good.
But then some of the things that we see along the way is that some of the ideas of what we thought would help build the business, we've talked about it, we've decided, we've created this plan, this hypothesis, and we've put it into action, and we didn't get the result that we were looking for.
Right.
Intelligent failures when you take a situation like that and you take what you've learned through that situation and you apply it towards something else. So you learn this doesn't work, but this is what we can put in the place of it and continue to grow. So intelligent failure means that you're falling forward, not backwards, where the other two, basic and complex failure, nothing's gained. Intelligent failure is learning.
So I'm going to tie those two books together with the vulnerability concept. It sounds to me like both of those books are talking about leaders being vulnerable.
Yes.
And that's an important piece of leadership now. So this is kind of our last topic. And to me, this is the biggest one because I've experienced this and I hear our clients talk about this all the time. What happens when you're the leader of the organization, whether you're the ED or the board chair, and the other leader, or there are other leaders, because there's always other leaders in nonprofits, have the kind of that old school, you're the leader, you can't show vulnerability, you have to make the decision, you have to stand by your decision, you never admit failure. Sometimes you blame it on other people. That program we designed didn't work. Nobody showed up for it. Well, that's because, we didn't market it right, or somebody else didn't market. There's always that failure. How do you bridge that as a leader? How do you talk about, I guess, this culture that you're trying to build and show them that they're wrong?
and that we're right. So I think it comes down to the concept of intention and impact. And if the ED is creating this, I don't want to say argument, but this stance on this is why this is important. Mm-hmm. And in mission-based organizations, people have to be tied to the cause.
Right.
If you're not tied to the cause and you don't understand why you're there, you can't see what the impact is. So I think as an executive director or as a board chair, it's talking about that intention and that impact. If we create this space where people feel safe to be able to share what they're experiencing, what is tripping them up and being able to achieve what the mission is, then we have evidence. We have clear indicators of what's working and what isn't working. And I think you have to start there and also consistently share the quick wins. Hey, we tried this. We implemented this. We talked about vulnerability. We collaborated. We problem solved together. And this is the great result that we achieved. It will slowly chip away at that, and people will see that they're having that success. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's going to have to show clear examples, maybe testimonials, and just clearly continuing to talk about our intention is to achieve this mission, and did our impact match?
Yeah. So what I heard you say is kind of stand by, have the confidence that this is going to work. It'll take some time, but it's going to work. But then also communicate the wins and the failures, but how the failures turned into something, whatever, however that works out. But it's a lot of communication with the people who are trying to tell you that this is the wrong way to lead a group of people or build a culture.
Absolutely. And the other piece about culture, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, is that the board is always in this evolution.
Right.
And so building a consistent culture within the board along with the organization takes that time, that care, that strategy, and how people prepare. So, in a previous episode, we talked about the fact that talking to new board members before they even join the organization.
Yep.
This is our culture. This is the culture of the organization. This is our mission, but this is what type of board we are. And then here is the culture. We collaborate, we share. Our board meetings are about deciding on action versus, I read this report and I agree with it. Like, let's vote on it.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's important that, I was just talking with one of our clients about onboarding board members. And of course, we have the checklist that you need to give them the bylaws. You need to show them insurance, all the nuts and bolts stuff. But this is just as important to talk about the culture of the organization. And especially if you're the ED and you're helping to onboard, making sure they understand this is kind of a non-negotiable. This is where we're going with this.
Yeah.
I'm being a little fierce because obviously I've been through this where, I've been called naive. I've been called naive. I've been called soft, that I'm not a good leader because I'm so soft. But, over the course of a year, I turned that person around, but it took a lot of confidence in myself. And there were days when I didn't have confidence in myself. There were days that it was like, maybe they're right. Maybe I should just go old school and, start firing people and writing people up and all that. But I stuck by my convictions, and we were so much more impactful. It really did impact the mission in the long run.
It does. I mean, the leaders that are emotionally intelligent know how to navigate and create this fantastic culture, and know how to navigate the long term of many of our board members come from corporations, and corporations are run very differently than the social sector. And so it's educating them on what the differences are and why it's important to know and understand that is really critical. Because otherwise people just come in and they're like, we have to make decisions, and this is very black and white, and this is what we need to do.
Right.
And the social sector is all about impact to humans or the environment or something else.
Yeah. It's about caring. That's what I like to say too.
Yeah.
All right. So today we dipped our toes in culture. We highly recommend the two books that we talked about. Amy Edmondson's
The Art of Failing Well.
Failing Well. Very good. And The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. Two books we absolutely love. And I've learned a lot from them and Steph about culture in just the 2 years we've been together.
Yeah, it's a great conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. If you need more information or would like to work with us, check out our website at nonprofitsidekick.com.